My tap wrenches have something to be desired about. Uh, these ones, when I put, a tap into them, they just don't hold the tap whatsoever, and it literally just that sometimes even falls out, and they loosen off when you are using them. So I picked up some 4140, and I plan on making a multi-purpose tap wrench that, and also make a wrench for these new 2-inch dies I picked up. As what I had in the past were just chasing dies, and they're just not acceptable for the kind of work I want to do and the kind of projects I got in store coming up. Anyways, got three sides of these, and I'm going to make one tap die that will do both the medium and large size, and probably, or sorry, not a tap die, tap wrench, and the next one for the little guys. But as you can see here, I tighten that up, and it's fairly snug in there, and it just pulls out, and then that's just not acceptable. I also want to make the new one with handles that are removable, because there's a lot of times, working in areas where it's very tight. Options are one, either remove the handle, get it, the tap wrench turned, or take the whole wrench off and reset it on the tap again. So I thought, if I make it so the handles can come off easily while maintaining the die in there, or sorry, the tap in there, then I have two options open to me, and that's the plan I had. So I did get the idea off this from this old Tony's website. He has a video up on YouTube showing how to make it, and I really like the design of the tap wrench he has there. And of course, the first thing is to get everything trued up so that I can start cutting the pieces to make this project. It's just the one block being used here. The other one is just to, keep the vise from squishing down or being too loose on the one end. But the next thing, once I got all this stuff cut, and a lot of this, saved a hell of a lot of time and cut it on the bandsaw. But just a matter of marking the two holes on there that are going to get drilled, and eventually these pieces are going to go onto the rotating table. So the holes need to be the same size so they can fit in the jig for the time being. But later on, after the work on that table is done, the other one hole on each of these opposite of each other will get drilled out a little bigger so that the handles are only being threaded in on one side on each. So it's, first of all, it's just a matter of, making something for that center so that these pieces of metal could sit on it and be rotated and cut. And once I got past this point, that is where all hell broke loose. And I don't know why the company that made that milling machine did this, but they went super cheap on the two most important bolts and nuts on the whole machine. Um, what ended up happening is once I started to machine those two pieces of this new tool, the material they used for their bolts and the one nut was really low quality steel for some reason, and these are the mechanisms that are holding that head from turning. Like, for some reason, I think it's a really bad idea that they came up with at the time, that the top head would actually turn on that milling machine. Like, it's so easy just to, support whatever you're working on with on an angle on a table. Like, it's really not needed, and the amount of work to get that thing back and true is just unbelievable, to the point where I don't think anyone would use that. But nonetheless, I went out and I bought some good hardware to put up in there, and my retail price on the good hardware was like under $4. So I'm sure whoever manufactured that thing could have, probably got it for like 40, 50 cents tops, compared to the, 35, 40 cents for what they actually used. Anyways, now that the new hardware is in there, the machine's working a lot better. Of course, so here, got the bases for this tool in there and just rounding off the edges on each side. And I did, of course, run into some problems on this. Is because this is where the milling machine actually crashed. And when it crashed, the whole head went out of tilt. And I tried to tram it back in a few times, and it kept crashing to the point where I just had to take it down and redo it. So it didn't crash that bad. This is actually up, but you can see in there that is the one bolt that is coming through the back side with a nut on it there to keep it from rotating. And I do have to say, when I took that off, that bolt fell down into the milling machine. And it was quite the job ripping this thing apart to get that bolt back out. But at the end of the day, bolt came back out, got some new bolts, got a new nut. The casting in there is fine. Just a matter of just cleaning it up a little bit and putting it all back together. And once I got it all back together, so far it's been working quite well. Uh, I should, I wish I would have had. There's a company down in the States, and I can't recall the name of it, but they do make switches to automate that process of lifting that head up and down. I wish I had it at that point because it would have been really easy to install it when the thing was ripped right apart. So, but back to the centerpieces here. Each one of these only has one side tapped, and the other side will be oversized now that the pieces are rounded off on the end. To oversize them, I just put it back in, and I use the same size drill bit just to make sure that the drill bit was sitting perfectly in that hole. Once it was perfect in that hole, I just swapped it out for a bigger drill bit and drilled those two holes out, one at each of them, making sure that I wasn't drilling the one side I just tapped. And I did tap, I believe I tapped both the left side, um, just to make sure that, I went on the right side to not get any confusion there, because I have done that in the past where I've threaded something and gone back and drilled it out. So once that was all done, the next thing I got to do here is get these things squared up, to do some work on them. The piece of aluminum bar underneath it is a little bit smaller than the work itself. You can see it's still wiggling there when that work's secured in there. I wasn't overly enthused about doing it this way, but at the same time, I thought I better have them both in there to cut that V to hold the tap. And I used the same. I actually went out and bought a couple of end mills that were V tapered on the bottom to do this step, and I cut them, and I really was not happy with how they looked at the end. Needless to say, when this step was all done, I ended up. I do have a little adjustable angle plate that I put in there that it's too big for the one piece, but too small for really two. But I had it in there, and I put the pieces in there and clamped the vices down pretty good on it, and did a little bit of math, and determined where I had to cut back to get that line pretty centered. Um, Unfortunately, the other side it's not quite done yet. I'm leaving it for the time being, but it's slowly going to get centered back as well to where this one it is. And once this is done, a little bit of cleanup on the sand and belt to make both pieces, you know, look symmetric. As I said, the mill did crash when I was cutting the rounds, and that did affect how they are. But at the end of the day, I just bolted these things together and just ran them on the belt sander, and they turned out pretty nice. After this, the next step is to make the first part of the handles, and as I said, I just want them in there to secure that tap, but still allow the outer part of the handles to be taken off in case I, have an area where I have to actually go in and it's too tight. And again, yeah, it's totally acceptable or allowable, I guess it is, if you take the both handles off and just lift the whole tap wrench out and just reposition it back on the tap. But I decided since I was doing this, might as well get a little fancy, or at least what I'd consider to be a little fancy. So these are actually oversized when I make them, and the whole back part of it's an knurled, or at least 90% of the whole back part of it's an knurled. The reason it's oversized is I will be turning these around in the lathe after they're threaded to thread the exterior uh, side, and I wanted something in the lathe to hold on to without chewing up the knurling that I had on there. So after the threading on the external side of here is done, then it's just a matter of parting off the piece and losing that little bit on the top that was put in extra to allow it to be held in the chuck on the lathe here to get this done. And I do have to say this was very nerve wracking going right to the end. Um, at the very back when I did that, at the very back of it when I did that, my lathe actually has a button on it you can push to get it to turn like a quarter turn, and it was engaged with the half nut. And the last little bit of that, I just turned that lathe by that button just to get it as tight as possible, and it did unfortunately destroy a couple of inserts doing it. For the handles themselves, I wanted something grippy on the outside. The 4140 steel I got here is not very good with the knurling, so I figured I'd cut slots in it, and that would give me something to grab. And then I'm just going to, thread the bottom side of it to go into those nuts that I built, and then have it tapered down to fit it. The work here is, had to be supported with a little jack, and I turned it 45 degrees. Um, the end mill I have on there, it came in a set, and there was, I think, 8 4 flute and 8 2 flute end mills. Well, that end mill got cooked within about 30 seconds. And eventually that thing got so bad that it just wasn't even cutting anymore. Um, I'm not even sure. I was planning on buying a jig to sharpen the end mills, but I'm not even sure if that thing's even worth bothering sharpening. The end mill that's currently in right now, it has it's carbon, and it done a wonderful job of cutting the grooves in that handle. So the next step, I threaded those handles into the nuts to be held while I tapered them, and you can see the one there now is completely tapered out. There's one spot on there where I went a little deep on it. I was planning on, putting the same gouge in on the second one, and then when I got around to it, I said, I'm not going to do that. Just it's a homemade tool there. It's got little nicks in it and everything else right now, and that's the way it's going to be at the end of the day. So got it all together, and it holds the taps fantastic. There's absolutely no way that those taps are getting pulled out. Well, I guess I shouldn't say there's no way, but there it is. And those handles where the knurling's at up those handles, the top part of the handles can come off. So getting around tight spots, or like I said, you can just loosen it up and move it and reset it on the tap.